intra-Africa movement of persons. And in this regard, Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, recently Togo, Rwanda, Kenya are some of the countries, and Congo-Brazzaville are some of the countries that have announced visa-free for all Africans on arrival. And that's exactly the direction that we have to move in and accelerate movement of persons. And let me, whilst we are talking about movement of persons, let me also address something which is very, very important. And that is that when business people are moving, a business person is not looking to stay in country X indefinitely. They are looking to conduct business and then leave. So we are working with our leaders, our heads of states, at the highest level to address this issue. We're also working with the private sector to address this issue, to make sure that as many countries as possible, at the very least, enable visa on arrival. So these are some of the constraints. The point you make is absolutely correct. They are all within our reach as a continent.
Yes, and I was recently in Togo, and I was there for business reasons, and when I arrived, they issued me with an investor passport, which, was a fast track to all of the opportunities for business people visiting on a short-term basis. And I think, that is something that is a very good model that can be followed. But I think prioritizing business access, as you say, is a very good idea as well. But I want to turn now to two subjects, digitization and manufacturing. Now, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about creating more manufacturing on the continent, because obviously that produces a much better trade environment, because you're adding value before things are moving offshore. How are you increasing the opportunity for manufacturing in the continent? And secondly, how is digitization helping? I mean, just to mention, one of the sponsors here this week is Aradex, and we work very closely with them. They are a 3D advanced manufacturing company. And I always say to them, you are the AfCFTA in action, because you can produce in 3 days spare parts for machinery that previously companies would have to fly parts from Germany or the US, and there would be downtime costs for a week or 2 weeks. So I think that is digitization and manufacturing combined. But those two things surely are transformative. I'd love to hear your views on that.
We are seeing increasingly our private sector taking advantage of Africa's digital economy. Fintechs, I mean, here in Lagos, this is a city that has the leading fintech industry and investments of fintech on the continent. We are seeing increasingly innovation in digital payments, increasingly innovation in business connectivity that is digital. And all of these interventions are absolutely critical, because we know that by 2035, Africa's digital economy is estimated to be at $712 billion by 2035. Now, for us to get to that point of that projection, we have to put in place the appropriate regulatory environment, whether it is doing the things that Governor was mentioning yesterday, and that is enabling data centers to be established across country or across, indeed, the continent, so that these data centers continue to power Africa's industrial development. This is a very, very strong focus for us, Africa's digital economy, and the infrastructure that is required to ensure the digital public infrastructure that's required to ensure that we reap the benefits of Africa's digital economy. And what really for us is important is the inclusion element of Africa's digital economy. We know farmers in Kenya that use digital tools to assess whether they should access a market today or tomorrow. Smallholder farmers, thousands and thousands of young people across our continent are at the cutting edge of digital innovation. And so these are very important segments of our society that are embedded in Africa's digital economy, and we have to encourage that. And finally, I would just say on the digital economy, the payments infrastructure that we have to set up on our continent is absolutely critical. Because if you and I'm sitting in Kenya, and you are a counterparty in Lagos, what has the United States dollar got to do with both of us trading? So we've got to enable payments in local currency. If you are in Nigeria, your counterparty is in Kenya, you trade in the naira, they receive the Kenyan shilling, and vice versa. And we have achieved this. To an extent, we have achieved this working with my senior brother, Professor Orama, when he was president of the bank. We supported the establishment of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which enables a payments infrastructure in Africa that has all of the sovereignty elements that we would want to see. So as we speak today, you are able to make an intra-Africa trade transfer on the back of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System without using the dollar. Now, the second component of your question is equally interesting because manufacturing continues to be the backbone and the potential for Africa's transformative initiative. As I mentioned yesterday, I mean, this city is well endowed. The largest number of industrialists in Africa are here. And these are people who continue to power Africa's industrial transformation. So at a policy level, continentally, we have to make sure that they are able to move their goods from Lagos to Egypt or from Lagos to Malawi with the least hindrances, whether we are talking about custom systems, harmonization, or whether we are talking about trade facilitation measures. We have to make sure that Africa's manufacturers continue to have access to the entire continent. We also have to make sure that they have access to capital to continue to invest in Africa's industrial development. Africa 50, Africa Finance Corporation, AFDB, Afrexim Bank, these are some of the institutions that have the balance sheet and have it to deploy it for industrial development of our continent. So I think these two components combined, digitization of Africa's economy on the back of a rapidly industrializing continent, this is exactly the kind of acceleration that we want to see.
Yes, I think that's really encouraging to hear that. And I had a very interesting meeting this morning with PZ Cousins, one of the oldest manufacturing companies on the continent and deeply embedded here in Nigeria. And it's also about, maintaining that manufacturing backbone and making sure that the conditions are right for them to thrive, because it's also about job creation, which I think manufacturing provides. I'd just like to turn now to the wider Commonwealth. So you are very focused, of course, on unlocking the potential domestically of the continent and creating this fantastic free trade zone. So what would you say to other Commonwealth countries, India, the other big trading nations? What would you say to them about doing business with Africa?
Well, this is one of the SG's, Madam SG of the Commonwealth. One of her priorities since she took over has been to put more emphasis on trade and investment within the Commonwealth. Of course, it is historically a political forum, but she has done a really good job to position the Commonwealth to focus on trade and investment. And in the AfCFTA, there is an opportunity. The AfCFTA is a platform for the Commonwealth to pursue that objective. we have a rapidly changing global context where trade and investment partnerships, the traditional trade and investment partnerships, are no longer there. The reliability aspect of those trade and investment partnerships is not there anymore. I think if you talk to the EU vis-à-vis the US and the trading relations and investment relations, the European Union is rapidly realizing that those partnerships don't count anymore. So similarly, we have to take account of what is happening around the world. Where are the opportunities within the Commonwealth context? Where are opportunities for investment? Where are opportunities for the digital economy? You mentioned India, a very competitive country in digitization. Whether we are talking about digitization of identities for the entire population, or indeed digitization of payments. So I think there are opportunities within the Commonwealth. We have to be very deliberate about identifying those opportunities. First, so market access. Second, we have to be very deliberate about identifying the investment and the financing that will be required to unlock those opportunities. And so here on our continent, there's an abundance of opportunity for investors from other Commonwealth countries. Whether we are talking about the Pension Fund of Australia, looking to invest in green technology in Africa to power our green trade and green industrialization, we have to take these very, very deliberate steps to unlock the trade and investment opportunities within the Commonwealth. We have the capability, we have the population, the combined GDP, whether we're talking about consumer spending or business spending, the capability is there. What we require now is a strategy to unlock these opportunities.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's also about sharing the knowledge, because I think I spend time in Australia, and that is a country that has been affected by the geopolitical shifts and is looking to diversify away from Asia as being its dominant market. And there is increasing interest in Africa, but they don't really know how to do business in Africa because they really haven't traded here before. It's the same with Canada. 80% of Canada's trade has come from the US, and suddenly they are required to look elsewhere. And Canadian businesses have been approaching us to say, we would like to do business with Africa, but we don't really know where to start. We don't know how to enter the market. And I think that's where you are in such a strong position, and all the work you're doing is going to bear fruit, because there is a great opportunity at this time. You know, where there is crisis, there is opportunity. And I think also making sure that these markets that are new to trading in Africa are aware of the opportunity, and to make sure that it's easy for them to do business and to enter the markets is really important as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, the conversations we are having mentioned some of the countries, private sector in Australia, in Canada, and so on. There is, of course, this perception of risk.
Yeah.
And the risk premium, which we have to explain the reality of our continent, that the risk premium, the price of the risk, is not relative to the real risk, and that it is determined in a way that doesn't take account of reality. But we have to confront that challenge. The second aspect of this is we have the advantage of, if we want to de-risk investment or de-risk market access into Africa by an Australian pension fund or a Canadian private equity firm, we have our own development finance institutions that are willing to partner to de-risk because they know the market very, very well. And they are already in the market. In fact, many of our development finance institutions, such as Afrexim Bank, Africa Finance Corporation, and so on. So these are opportunities within the Commonwealth for private sector within the Commonwealth to leverage on existing capital in Africa for further expansion and to further unlock opportunities.
Exactly, and as our chairman, Lord Marland, said yesterday, there's a 21% advantage of intra-Commonwealth trade because of the trust and the existing relationships and partnerships already that can be leveraged and elevated in order to create new opportunities and to expand. And I think that's what we're all very committed to doing. And just in closing, what does the future look like? If we project forward to 2050, what would you like to see?
Well, I think we are on track as a continent to double intra-Africa trade by 2050. We are on track to create a globally competitive economy that is collectively the African continent, provided we implement what we agreed to do, provided we agree to implement measures that will unlock private sector investment collectively as a continent, not individual countries. We invest in our infrastructure. We invest in transport and logistics. We invest in trade finance. I believe we are well poised to unlock the great potential that our continent has. And I have the honor to travel the length and breadth of our continent. And so I'm able to see the opportunities that we have. But it will take a great deal of effort for us to unlock these opportunities that are in abundance. And by 2050, we should no longer be talking about we have the potential. We should have unlocked the potential by 2050. Yes.